Welcome back to the Dynasty Football Maniacs. So today is Sunday. We're doing a little special episode on college. We on our episode 18, we covered way prediction for college. Talked about some of the players that are coming out and then who would finish in the top 12 because of the whole new 12 game playoff. So I pulled Austin in my list up and I was kind of shocked how horrible I did. So let's just start with that. So I picked 12 teams, and out of them 12 teams, we could pretty much safely say seven's eliminated. So we know Syracuse ain't going to make it. Louisville ain't going to make it. Utah ain't going to make it. Baylor is not going to make it. Illinois is not going to make it. And Arkansas has no chance. Now, the other teams, it's kind of like a elimination. And as I talk into this, you kind of see what I'm going at with this. So I still left Georgia as an open, Alabama as an open, Notre Dame, Tulane, Ohio State, Penn State. All these guys have a great opportunity to make the playoffs. I don't care what you think. Two loss, one loss. Let me tell you, these are some powerhouses here. So we'll go to Austin's list. He only has three that are guaranteed not to make the list. So he did a lot better than I did. Michigan Wolverines. Yeah, I could see the hype. They just got off of that championship. I could see him putting on the list, but they're not going to make it. Utah, he picked the same one I picked, but they're not going to do it. In Liberty, we were kind of stretching it with the non-power five because you never know where it's going to go. And then his teams were like Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Clemson, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State. All these still have a fighting chance to get in.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely.
and my other issue was I wanted to do this show so quick because I seen someone post something on the X page, and it just like it didn't make me mad. It just was like, really, are we that just like dumbfounded about football rules? But then I found out I'm not as smart as I thought I was either. So it works both ways. So when I read the rules, I knew five conference champions got in, and I always thought under my perception of it was four power four guaranteed and one non-power five. But then when you reread the rules, it doesn't state that. It says the highest ranked five conference champions. Doesn't matter what conference you come from. So at first I thought that was a lie because that's just me. I think Power Four has to be over everybody. Good God, why not? And I had to go back and reread the rules again somewhere else and kind of find out it says the same thing. So I guess I made that stuff up in my head. I don't know where I heard that from. Probably listened too much to ESPN. It happens. Uh, so we get that. And what made me upset, and I'm not even an SEC fan, but when you sit there and try to put out a prediction without no SEC team, not even the conference champion in it, you've just done hit your noggin on the wall. I mean, come on, guys, get real. Just the bottom line. I mean, no matter how you look at it, how you hate it, at the end of the day, you're going to have two of them teams, three of them teams in the playoff, even with two losses. I mean, they're just that conference is a pretty powerful conference. Same with the Big Ten. You're not going to leave the Big Ten out of it. They're going to be there. It's nothing against the Big 12, ACC, but there is a difference when you see these guys match up in these playoff games. So I just wanted to point that out. So I did a little spew just real quick, and Austin, I just like to have him on here because sometimes he has to do put me in check. I get a little carried away, and got to have that little sidebar there. Say, "Whoa, you stepped the line there," but he's going to let me do my little spew, and then we're going to cover some players. And I want to hear what his take is on some of my take of some of the players that might come out. We're not going to go over a whole bunch, but just a few. Because the 2025 draft is going to be a big deal. You're going to have a lot of top players come out. So my first thing is this is prediction only. This is not facts, and this is based on what you see currently in the rankings. So if you pull up the rankings on ESPN anywhere you go, these are how these guys are ranked in their conference, how the standings are. So I based a lot of my predictions off this last week's games, which I'm glad he postponed the show today because one of the games kind of put me on the fence about something. But I went ahead and stayed on that line because
Mm.
technically that game really didn't like it mattered, but it's good in a way that they had their slip up. And why I say that, I'll get into that a little bit later. So, Atlantic Conference, there's going to be three teams that are running for the ACC conference. Okay. None of these teams will face each other prior to the ACC conference. So, it's basically at the end of the day, if they all win out, no matter how the rankings look right now, yeah, they have Clemson a little bit above the other one, but it's going to change. I think it already has. but it's going to be Miami Hurricanes and SMU Mustangs. You can't take that away. Mustangs, they don't have that many more games that are very strong that they're going to have any slip ups. The only loss they lost to was the number 16 BYU. Um, at the end of the day, I believe that SMU will win the ACC conference, and that's going to eliminate the Miami Hurricanes, and they're going to drop far enough in the rankings where the only one that gets in from the ACC is SMU. And then that kind of goes to the Big 12. The Big 12, you would never, I would have never guessed it in a day. No, there was nothing ever told me that I want to see BYU and Colorado in conference champion. But even if it plays out like BYU, they lost a game last night to Kansas. Colorado has Kansas next away, which is going to be a tough game for Colorado. But I think Colorado will run the table. I think they're going to win Kansas and Oklahoma. I believe by BYU's toughest game is going to be away at Arizona State. Houston's going to be a walk in the park in a home game. But when BYU and Colorado meets in the conference champion, I think at the end of the day we're going to see BYU. They will be ranked number 3. I think they'll move them to the rank 3. So that gives you 2 teams out of the 12 that are going to make it. I mean, there's no other way around. The only way Arizona State gets back in the mix is Arizona State would have to beat BYU. No, even if they beat BYU, I looked at that. The way the rules are, it would still leave BYU at the top. So, because they only would have one loss, where Arizona State would have 2 losses in the conference. So it wouldn't work out. Um, the Big Ten is a excitement remains in the Big Ten. Okay, so you got 3 teams shooting for the Big Ten conference, and you say, well, no, there's more teams up at the top. There's 4 teams at the top, but one team doesn't have a shot due to the fact that they lost head to head to the other team. And even if they all win that, if the other team lost to Indiana this week, they still wouldn't have a shot because then you still have the Oregon Ducks. So let me kind of explain this whole thing. So I looked at the rankings and how it was all set out in the Big Ten, and you can go to ESPN, you can look this up, you can fact check me. Um, so you got 3 teams shooting for it. Even though Penn State's not going to make it, if they win out, they'll still remain number 4 in the rankings. They will still make it to the playoffs. All they got to do is beat Minnesota away and Maryland, which literally fell off the rails. There's nothing at Maryland that's preventing Maryland to win. I mean, they can't win a game. Um, so my prediction at the end of the day, I believe Ohio State will overcome Indiana Saturday on 11/23, the Horseshoe. They are playing at home. And then their upcoming, which is a tough rivalry on 11:30, I believe they will overcome Michigan in the Horseshoe because it's another home game. And this will put Ohio State in the Big Ten Champions Conference as a rematch to Oregon. Oregon and Ohio State had a really good game. It was a tight game, and I think this is what's going to put Ohio State over the edge. It's going to put them in as the Big Ten champion, which is going to leave them either at the number 2 spot. I do not think, even if they win that game, and I honestly don't think they should, because when I get to that next conference of who I think should be number 1, even though I put here 1 or 2, I honestly believe that the committee will probably vote them in as 2, the second best team. With even though Indiana losing to Ohio State, if they win out, they only have 1 loss. They have a really good resume. They will be in. Yes, I'm saying 4 teams from the Big Ten will be in. So you'll have Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and Penn State all making the playoffs. So that goes to the other big powerhouse, and this is the one that is really tricky too. And you look at it, it is wow. And don't look at the losses. Yeah, they're cannibalizing each other, but in reality, you can't take them out of the rankings. You can't dismiss that and say they're not better than that other team from that other conference. It's just you can't do that. So my prediction will be Texas Longhorns will win out the regular season. Their next home game is against Kentucky at 11/23. The toughest match they have is at Texas A&M. Yes, Texas A&M has showed them splashes of greatness, and yes, I would love to see Texas A&M win, even though it's going to be at Texas A&M. I think Texas is on a roll, and they're going to win it. That would leave Texas as the number 1 team. I think at the end of the day, they'll end up putting Texas back at number 1. It's just the fact that they maintained and controlled, and they only had that little hiccup with Georgia, and it's a one-loss team from the SEC, how would you deny them? You couldn't. Even if
I,
they didn't get number one, you could get them number two.
I think in the SEC championship game, it's going to be Texas against Georgia.
Oh, that's my prediction. I was getting to that. So I actually have it written down. So what this is going to do is when Texas wins out and goes into the championship, this leads Texas to the rematch to Georgia. It's an elimination match basically for Georgia. If they lose, they're out. They'll have three losses, and the committee will not put them in. And I believe Texas will overcome them. They'll be their revenge game. It'll be their match, and Texas will be the SEC championship, which then these other three teams are going to make it into playoffs because no matter how you look at the rankings, if you look at the rankings currently, if these guys win out, you can't drop them that far to kick them out of the playoffs. So you're going to have these three teams. Well, it'd be two teams because you'll have three teams from the SEC. You'll have Tennessee Volunteers. They'll get in. They only have to play UTEP and Vanderbilt. Georgia would be eliminated because they had their third loss. Old Miss would get in because all they have, and their toughest game is Florida. Florida is like a hot spot. 1 minute they're there, 1 minute they're not. Who knows what's going to show up when they play? Mississippi State, I think, Old Miss, even though it's a rivalry game, I believe they're going to hold their own. Alabama only has Oklahoma away and then Auburn at home. No offense, Auburn. I know it's a tough rivalry game, but I think Alabama's going to hold their own. I honestly believe you'll see Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas all in the playoff. So that leaves me with the. So we've done got quite a few teams in there. So we're missing two teams. So we go into the American Atlantic Conference, and I know there's some people out there that put this prediction in there, but Army's going to fall to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a good team, and I would love to see Army beat Notre Dame and stay undefeated, but I don't think it's going to happen. Army will go against Tulane in the ACC championship, and yes, Tulane will win out the regular season with Memphis left on their schedule, 11-28. Army will have two regular season games left on their schedule at Notre Dame, but this will be Army's first loss in the final match on 11:30. They have USTSA, which Army should walk right through that. I believe Tulane will win, overcome Army in the AAC conference champion, leaving both teams with two losses and not ranked high enough to make the 12-team playoff. So I don't honestly think they'll make it because when you walk over to the Mountain West Conference, Boise State Broncos will probably end up facing off against the Colorado State Rams in the Mountain West Conference champion. And I predict Boise State Broncos will win. They won't be ranked 13. They'll be ranked 7 at the end. So when the rankings are all done, I believe this year, they're actually all going to fall in the top 12 because if you look at the rankings now and look at the past rankings, how teams have moved up and moved down for wins, it's not impossible for Boise to move up to 7. They definitely got a running back that'd be coming out this year, and I hope he does come out. We're going to get into him in a little bit. It's definitely a powerhouse. So that gives us our 11th team. The 12th team, as long as they win out, I don't think the committee's going to leave them out. One, they're too high ranked. You would literally have to drop them far to kick them out of the playoffs at this point. And as long as they win out, I've never seen that happen before. And it's not saying it couldn't happen. We've seen a lot of things that's never happened. I seen the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight. Whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There was better fights that night than that. But I love Mike. Love you, Iron Mike. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So that gives you 11 teams for the playoffs. So my prediction: Notre Dame, Fighting Irish will be your 12th team, and the reason why they're currently ranked 8. They have Army on their schedule on 11:23, and then they got to face off with USC. Yes, Lincoln Riley's had his moments, but I honestly believe the last couple matchups, Notre Dame's going to overcome. So I got the 12th seed, Old Miss, facing off to the number 5 seed, Penn State. Then I have the number 9 seed facing off with the number 8 or the number 9 seed, Indiana, facing off with Notre Dame, number 8. I have a number 11 seed, And this is all based on college prediction book rules. I got Alabama, number 11 seed, facing off to Oregon. Then I have a number 10 Tennessee facing off against the number 7 Boise State. That leaves 4 bye weeks, which you got SMU on number 4, which the winner from Ole Miss Penn State would meet as MSU. And then the winner out of Notre Dame, Indiana would have to face off with Texas. Alabama or Oregon would have to face off with BYU. Tennessee and Boise State would go against Ohio State. So I think that was a pretty good prediction just based on what has occurred so far and what's left in the season. I know I didn't do no greatness back in April, but yeah, some of them teams we talked about eliminates a little bit more. But I honestly believe at the end of the day, if these teams win out and do their job, this is what you're going to see. So I'm kind of excited for the first 12 games. I don't know how you are about it. I mean, but I'm really pumped.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's something different. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
so what was your take on what I kind of just went over? You think that was too much, or
No, no, I think it's right. I think I would. In all honesty, I would switch out BYU for Colorado, but that's just me. But most for the most part, I kind of agree with majority of that. In all honesty,
yeah? And I kind of looked at that too. I struggled with that. I did some simulations and things like that. You know, they got them simulators out there now. You can plug it in and see what they could do. And
oh yeah,
yeah, and I played around with it a lot. And but then in my gut feeling, just watching because I've actually watched both teams played. And in Colorado, don't get me, they got 2 stars, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. These guys are good. They're not your average football player. That is what's keeping Colorado afloat. That offensive line, none of them guys are going to get drafted. But that quarterback, he's going to get drafted. That cornerback and wide receiver slash whatever, the guy that plays everything, he's going to get drafted. Travis Hunter, right?
and
Let's just say it. He's going
and
to be
the
the popular guy.
and the coach is going to go to the NFL.
I wonder that, and it might happen. It might happen. He might follow his son, but I also see a separation. It could happen too.
Hmm.
You know how people talk. So this, we're not going to dig too deep into about who's coming out because some of these guys can decide to stay back in, but I doubt very much the next 3 names I mentioned will stay. No, I think they're all seniors too. Nope, one's a junior. I didn't even know he was a junior. I thought he was a senior already. Wow. Okay. So for the quarterback side, I struggled with this. And Austin's over there saying, "Oh God, he's got his whole hot State stuff on." You know what he's going to say next. No, I'm not. Actually, I do have Saunders as my first one, and I do like Cam Ward. Cam Ward shows a lot of potential, and I also like Quinn Ewers. I liked him when he was at Ohio State. I wish he would have stayed. I think he could have won the back room. They wouldn't have had to go out and get Will Howard. He was thinking he couldn't, but then he was from Texas. So whatever happened, he made his decision to go back home. I don't hate him for it. It just that's my top 3 for quarterbacks. And then my fourth guy I got coming in, and I mean, I'm more on Dylan Gabriel than I am Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, or Garrett Nussmeyer. I just think Dylan Gabriel, from his performance in the Pac 12, Big 12, just in general, overall, he is a good quarterback. But he also reminds me a lot of Marcus Mariota, which is scary. Because there was a moment when
Mm.
Marcus Mariota looked really like, oh my God. But then when he got to the pros, it was like everything on the hinges fell off. And I feel that's going to happen with him. But I also kind of see, like, well, no, I don't see anything else in him other than Mariota. Well, maybe that's not a good prediction. So, but some other surprising ones that I did look at and I've seen playing, I kind of really do after watching a few. I would have never watched this guy, but since Indiana became the team, it's like I had to look at him. And that's Curtis Rourke. Sorry, did not mean to tear your name up. Sorry, man. Uh, I think a 6'5" guy. I mean, he's huge and he runs 40 and 4.74, which ain't really fast, but for a quarterback, pretty decent. I mean, Saunders is only 4.65 in a 40-yard dash. That's not like official. That's just like what they got put out there. It could be made up number. You won't know until the combine. Don't go by the numbers I'm giving you until the combine. But that's my outtake. I mean, who do you think? Do you think I got the wrong ones up there? Yeah, I wanted to put Will Howard up there, but no, I can't. Your
Okay,
take.
so Nate, rename your top three quarterbacks that you had. I know what I know.
Saunders, Cam Ward, and Ewings.
Okay,
Ewing.
so we're in agreement on that because I have them three in the top three as well. The one thing we have a little disagreement on is I actually have Jalen Milrow right behind Ewers. That's something we. It's not necessarily like a disagreement. It's just it's just our opinion. You see what you saw, and I saw what I saw. We've always had a conjunction of different opinions.
Yeah, and that's
We've
that's the
always
whole
been
point.
like that.
Yeah,
But I don't disagree with it. I mean, I see your point on some things. It's just I know for a fact the top three is the same.
right. And then see, I struggled with it because actually I got Jalen right behind Dylan Gabriel. It's like
See,
he's in my top five, but I don't have Carson Beck in my top 10. I'm
see,
just
and that's where our we have little differences because I have Dylan Gabriel as seventh, but you see something different in him than I do. So we've always like we did last year when we were covering the rookies last year. I've always had my guys, and you've always had your guys. So I see that all happening this year as well.
yeah. So let's run into and we're actually going to cover every position real quick, and we're not going to get too deep into it, but just these are highlights of prospects coming out in 2025 for fantasy. So this is more along the line of Dynasty. If you're playing Dynasty, you should be listening right now because you're going to have your rookie draft coming up. And these guys are going to be highly sought at. This is way out prediction. Technically, Urians can stay in another year for Texas, but I doubt he will. I mean, there's another guy waiting in behind, and unless he transfers, I just don't see him staying another year. But going into running backs, my list is shook up because the year shook it up. So I have my list a little differently laid out. But then after reality set in and see how performances are occurring now, what I do believe is what I'm naming is just a handful. And I think you have a solid 10 group of running backs coming out this year
Well,
that could
this
all be potential stars.
well they did say I've heard a couple of the so-called experts. They talked about how this year's draft class for running backs is going to be pretty deep this year.
So as a rookie draft, don't get disappointed if you grab that first in. You can't get that first in and you get like a second rounder or a third rounder. Because like when I say this class is deep, I mean if you compare the stats of the top 10 to what previously came out in the last couple of years, if they would have came out a couple of years earlier, some of these guys would be number ones, but they're getting beat out by the guy that's just that much better. That's how crazy this is. So it's something you don't see often. So you say, well, the guy I'm fixing to name, you're going to be like, how is that even possible? Well, let me tell you, it doesn't matter what school they play at, doesn't matter where they go. You can tell when you have a generational talent. And I always get on these hype trains to try not to accept sometimes, but I really, after watching the guy play, he has no undoubtable question to me that he's a generational talent. So I can't put him in the class of Bijan because I seen Bijan have his issues and injuries. This guy haven't. This guy's just bulldozing. I mean, just moving. And that's Ashton Gentney from Boise State. I mean, you can't take that away from him. He is the number one running back coming out this year. I want to say different, but he's not. But Walter Payton, he didn't come from a big college either. So at the end of the day, this guy's a star. I'm telling you, whoever gets him, wherever he goes, he's going to be your Barkley.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know the only one I won't ever compare anybody to is Christian McCaffrey because Christian McCaffrey has always have been the most special running back that ever came out, like just ridiculously in fantasy points. But there's a lot that are equivalent and close to him, and he's going to be one of them guys. He's going to be your Jamar Gibbs. He's going to be your Aaron Jones. So yeah, definitely. And then uh O'Marin Hampton is the other one I have.
Uh-huh.
And then the next one I have is Jordan James. Oh, I scrolled up too far. So he plays at, well, let me get back. I forgot the school, North Carolina. And then Jordan James, he's a junior at Oregon. Both top scale. They're my top three. My number four, my earpiece is coming out. I'm sorry. I actually like Dylan Sampson. Sorry. The guy's a beast. But
Yeah.
other experts do not have him where I have him. They do have him in the top 10, but I got him about four. But I never like to agree with the experts. I like to put my own little thing together. Sometimes my top three don't even match them. So the next guy I have is I think Trevion Henderson is better than Quishon Junkins, like just as an overall back. Quishon Junkins is more down as your third down back. Trevion is a pass runner. And the only thing scary about Trevion Henderson is this. Let me tell you guys, I watched a lot of Ohio State ball, and I've seen a lot of good running backs come through there. And if he would have just stayed healthy, we would be talking on him on a different level. And that's another scary thing. He could end up in the NFL and be injured instantly, and we'd be like a hit or miss. He could be like a J.K. Dobbins. One here, he's like when he plays, he scores you 30 points, but he's out 5 games. So it's like it could be that guy. So what's your take?
Well, my top three is literally the same as yours. So far, we in agreements for the top three. Um, I have, I honestly have Samsung around four.
Okay.
I have him
We're
around four, and then right up behind him, I actually have Brashard Smith from SMU right behind Samson. So most for the most part, we kind of are in agreement on most of them.
So yeah, Bernard Smith. I got to watch him last night, or was it last night? Finally, sat down watching SMU. I wanted to see what SMU was all about. Had to. I haven't been paying attention to them, but they're winning. So I was like, okay, we're gonna watch a game, and I was like, man, what a running back! I was like,
Right?
ooh,
Right?
and I was like, ooh, that's some dangerous stuff right there. I was like
Right?
excited.
That's
So
that's
I
that's, that's the reason why I have him right behind Samson, because when I watched a little bit of him, man, I was like, if I can't get any of these top three guys in the rookie draft, I would be definitely happy with him.
same here. All right, so we're pretty much agreed on the running backs. Got to move on to the wide receivers. So the wide receivers. So I got McMillan for Arizona. Then I have Trey Harris, and then I have Abuka.
Oh,
And then I have Isaiah Bond. So that is my top four.
hmm.
My top
Well,
five is kind of like a mix. It's like I'm rolling the dice, but ain't decided yet. I like Xavier and Ty, but it's like Ty Felton. Um, Xavier Restro Pro. I mean, he looks pretty good for Miami. I mean, downright really good, but not really put him up there.
hmm.
So, what's your take?
Well, I got McMillan at one. I got a Ibuka at two. Then I got Harris at three. And then I have Rush Rivero from Miami at four. And then I actually have the wide receiver uh, from Maryland, Felton. I got him at five.
Yeah. Well, let's see
So,
here.
but I see why you have Isaiah Bond up there, though. I've battled with it too on whenever I was thinking about it, or actually when I was actually updating my list.
So, try- uh,
That's funny.
but yeah, that's where I was at on that. I mean, I don't know if I was trying to take the Ohio State bias out, but there was at times I wanted to put a Buka one, but then when you watch McMillan play, you watch Harris play, you watch Bond play, it's kind of hard to just say, oh, he's number one. Really, the wide receiver class is not as impressive as we have seen in the past. I mean, it's a decent class, but it's not like the high end that we usually get. That's just my opinion. I mean, I might be wrong.
I can I can see it. Then again, it might surprise us.
Yeah, they do. They do every year.
Mm.
So going into my next group, I have a little different list than most people would have. So here we go. Brace yourself. I got Colston Loveland. Yes, I have him as my number one tight end. Yes,
Hmm.
he does play with that team, but he's a good tight end. And then my next guy I have is from Penn State, another Big Ten guy, Tyler Warren. So right now I got Tyler Warren, and then my third guy is Luke Lachey from Iowa. So that's who I have. My top three.
Hmm. Wow.
Now I do
So
have my fourth guy is Harold Fanning Jr. and then Eli Stowers, and then I have Brent Guthrie from Utah.
okay, so ours is a little bit all mixed and match, and because I got Fanning Jr. from Bowling Green at one, then I have Tyler Warren at number two from Penn State. Then I got Colston Loveland from Michigan at number three. Then at four I got Eli Stowers from Vandy.
Mm.
And then at five I got actually Gunnar Helm from Texas. So ours is a little bit different on that aspect, which is kind of nice to see because we've been kind of agreeing a little bit too much on most of
Yeah, you start thinking we're doing other things. We got to calm it down. So
them.
since me and Austin do defensive players too, we're never going to give no love to them guys because they need love just like the offensive side. So
Oh, absolutely.
we kind of touched on our forecast. This is 2025, guys. I know we're a little ways out. We still got the combine. We still have all that little activity that happens at the end of the season. And some of
Yeah,
these players we're talking about could go back as another senior and
yeah,
not proclaim.
but regardless, you always have if you're in the dynasty league, you always have to have your scouting cap on,
Oh,
and
definitely.
you always have to plan for the future, regardless if you're playing for the past, regardless if you're contending or rebuilding or anything. You always have to have your scouting cap on throughout the year. Doesn't matter what part of the year it is.
Right. So let's go into defensive line. We'll do, how about we do defensive line, linebacker, defensive backs. See, this is where I get mixed up because the way Dynasty is, you have defensive line and linebackers can end up falling in the same category. And a lot of times they do. And what they played in college is not what they play in the NFL. And it's so, you just do the best you can. And you can't really find a lot of sites to back up the information. You have to sit there and dig for defensive players. But a lot of them don't even list it as the dynasty listings. They want to go off and name them edge and linebackers. And linebackers, I get it. I understand it. But I look for like if they're defensive ends or whatever. So let me get all that true out of the way. So my top three is these are more like defensive linemen and not linebackers. So I have I just had my list and I closed it out. So I have Princely Unmanlin from Ole Miss as my number one guy. Then I have Abdul Carter, Penn State, as my number two guy. I have Walter Nolan from Ole Miss as my number three guy. My number four guy, I have Malik Karma from Indiana. If you watch this kid play, I mean, what a beast. And then my number fifth, I have Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. That's my current rankings for my scout. Now, that's just me looking at what I seen. And there's other players out there that other sites are naming that could probably be good potentials, and I've looked at. But when I look at it, this is what I see. So
Hmm.
none of it can be told until the NFL scouts get a hold of it. But you just do with what you got out there.
Yeah, that's true. So mine's obviously going to be a little bit. Mine's going to be different because, for the most part, like you said, the way they list things and all that. So I'm gonna combine. Mine's basically combined to just defensive line. I didn't separate it as well like you did. I went with just overall defensive line instead of just being edge and stuff. So number one, I have Mason Graham from Michigan.
Yeah, he's in
I,
my top 10.
I have Walter Nolan at number two. Then I have Princely Umana Mellon from Ole Miss. I'm gonna have to
Got
work on that name a lot more, but
Yeah, same here. I was like, God, I
uh,
was struggling with it.
so I got him at three, and then number four I got Abdul Carter at number four, and then at number five I have James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. So that's who I got right now in the top five.
That's pretty. I can't disagree with all them players right there. All in my top 10. We just talked about.
Right.
So going on to linebackers, we're going to call these linebackers. And I'm not guaranteeing they're going to be linebackers when they get into the NFL because some of these guys end up being DLs and it just aggravates me. But then they're slash, they're DL in line, so it's like it's good and it's bad. Um, I am going to have my ranking is going to be Jay Higgins, Iowa, is a linebacker. Next guy I have is Dante Lawson from Alabama. Definitely needs to be in the top three. And then Samuel Mondone Jr. from Georgia. Now, I have argued with myself several times and wanted to put Samuel higher, but at this point in time, I feel like I have him where he needs to be. And my next guy I have on my list, that's number four, is Lander Barton, Utah. So if you watch this kid, he's pretty bad. Then I have Cody Simon from Ohio State. So
Okay. So mine's kind of like yours, except for obviously they're switched around a little bit. So at number one, I have Samuel Moden Jr. from Georgia. At number two, I had Jay Higgins from Iowa. Number three, I had David Bailey from Stanford.
oh yeah, I
I
forgot about Bailey.
I have at number four, I have Deontay Lawson from Alabama. And at number five, I have Danny Stuntsman from Oklahoma.
Hmm. Yeah, so them guys are really good. So the only advice I can give you guys out there right now, because this is like pre-advance, this is just us doing a little college thing for our 50th show. Yeah, this is hard to believe we're recording our 50th show. We started back in February, so we're doing great. I mean, we're up to 1,600, almost I think a 1,700 um, subscribers. So we're definitely trending. Hopefully, we keep going that way, and hopefully, it brings in more. But yeah, It's going to be a shakeup, and then kind of going to the defensive backs. Oh, my list ain't coming up. It doesn't want to come up. That's shameful. Hmm. Hold on. I just clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Jesus, man. All right. So there's a big question mark about the guy I'm fixing to talk about next. I honestly believe he'll go the top round, if not first. The only thing that'll go before him will probably be a quarterback if a team is so desperate in need of a quarterback. And there's a lot of teams desperate in need of a quarterback. So that'd be most likely the scenario we're going to see in the draft because it seems like that's been a constant lately.
Hmm.
And you do have a good series of quarterbacks coming out. So he could not, but I guarantee you he'll be within the first three picks, if not the first. And this guy right here can play any position.
Oh, I
And
think, in all honesty, I didn't mean to cut you off, but in all honesty, in Dynasty rookie drafts, I see him going as the 101.
I, if he's
I,
a defensive back, I probably won't get him at the
I,
101.
look, if they do this with Taysom Hill on Sleeper, they have him as a quarterback slash tight end.
Yeah.
If they do that for Taysom Hill, who's to say that they don't do the wide receiver slash defensive back for Travis Hunter?
Now, if they go and do that, oh yeah, he's going to 101. So yes, you're okay. You got a point. If they plan on using him or any way as a dual, okay, I could see, especially in a league that you have bonuses for kickoff returns and stuff. Oh yeah, he's going 101. I think most of your running backs will probably take the 101 unless it's a flex,
Right.
and some of your quarterbacks will take it. But if Travis Hunter comes out and says, no, I don't want to play,
Just one position. I want to play both.
or I don't want to play defense back, I want to be a wide receiver. I
Right.
mean, that's going to change the whole projection of where he goes in the draft. He'd still go top in the draft as a wide receiver because they can always use him as a back if they
Right.
needed him to. So either way, he'd be a great pickup, even if he's not listed as a sleeper as a defensive back or wide receiver. You get points if he's on the field,
Yep.
whatever he scores. So yeah, definitely my number one guy. So can't take him for granted. Do I think he deserves the Heisman at this point in time? There's a lot of players that deserve the Heisman, but he does play dual position, which is special. He's a special player. So yes, I think he's with his rating and everything he's doing right now. Yeah, I can see it. Um, my next one is God, I just said his name. Malachi Moore from Alabama, my number two guy. And then my next guy after that is JD Barron from Texas. And then I have Nick Emanwar from South Carolina. And then Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. And then is his name pronounced Malachi too, Sharks? Or is it Malika Sharks? And be
Oh,
Malika Sharks. He'd
that
be my
might be.
number.
That probably might be Malachi too.
Yeah.
It's just spelled differently. Then
So I'm
again,
definitely
it could be that. But yeah, I see who you got.
yeah. So Travis Hunter is the best one out of the bunch, and yes, I'm ranking him higher than most of the safeties. Usually, I put the safeties higher than him because they're higher attended, but he's special. He's special. So that covers my projection for 2025. Now we'll come out with our official list soon, like getting closer towards the end of the season. Probably during the playoff stuff, me and Austin will probably put out some of our first official top 10 list and start covering a little bit more deep in the stats. We won't try to overburden you, and we did that the last time. We spaced out our shows where we just did like top tens, top fives, so we could talk about each player, what their impacts were, potential hits and misses. I kind of want to do that again this year. I enjoyed it. I think that's probably been my favorite part of doing the show is talking about the prospects coming out versus who's already out. Because you pretty much know who's already out, just determining what they can do this year. And right now, a lot of them are on the bench and injured. So I know. So there we go. Um, yeah. So do you have any other outtakes in your projections? Did you kind of like have anything else to throw out there on the college guys coming out?
Well, man, well, I would definitely be on the lookout. I'm not gonna announce them right now, but there will be some sleepers that we bring up when we actually start deep diving into more of the college prospects during the off season and stuff. But I have already, I think, put stakes and claims into who was going to be my guy that I'm going to go after in the rookie drafts this year.
Yeah, this rookie draft, you definitely want to have one first rounder at least. You want to be able to, even if it's the ninth first rounder. It's just,
Oh,
I think,
you just still need one.
I don't think we're going to be as disappointed as you have been in the past. With I think pretty much everybody that goes in the first 10 in a normal draft will end up being stars, like way beyond what we're going to see the years after. I mean, 25 is definitely going to be a good year for quarterbacks, running
Mm,
backs, even wide receivers and defensive players. So I'm excited. I want to see what it can give us, and and it really depends on the landing spots too. I mean, at the end of
yep.
the day, we can project one thing, but if they land somewhere, that projection doesn't matter. I mean, you could be the
Well,
number three guy and you'd be sitting on the bench for 2 years.
if you looked at our lists last year from when we were doing them before the draft, and then when we re-updated and did our official final ones after the draft, you can see a lot of them swings from where some names were higher and then they wind up being lower, or some that's been lower than the higher because of everything that happens at the draft.
Yeah, the draft pet plays a big part of it. Um, and we'll do a couple of them shows too. We do our draft simulators this year, so don't miss out on that fun stuff when we start doing them.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that are our GM caps.
that's right. So if you guys like the content, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And what do you always say?
Make sure you share because sharing is caring.
That's right. Sharon is Karen.